I know you want to play, but I gotta film, okay? Alright, this is Reading Riley, where we like to read Riley, not take ourselves too seriously, and have some fun with books. Today we're doing a June wrap-up. I'm really behind, sorry. And it'll be sweet, oh so sweet, when you read Riley. But I'm doing Summerween right now, and it is consuming my life. All right, get out of here with that. Go on. You can hang out with me, but no squeaky toys, okay? All right, so I didn't do a mid-month wrap-up this month because I just didn't read that much in June, or at least not as much as I usually read. So I just figured I'd wait till the end of June. But I did, throughout the month, end up reading 9 books. I had a pretty good reading month, considering that. I read a lot of my most anticipated books in June. I found some new ones that I was really interested in. Let's get into the books. The first book I read this month is called Girl One. I don't have a physical copy of this. It's by Sarah Flannery Murphy. It was really interesting, actually. It's described as Orphan Black meets Margaret Atwood, so it's kind of a feminist telling. I don't know what Orphan Black is though, so I can't speak on that. It's a supernatural thriller about female power and the bonds of sisterhood. So Josephine Morrow is our protagonist. She is Girl One. There's this guy, and it's set in, I think it starts in like the 1970s. He's a scientist. He gathers these women together in this kind of pseudo cult that they call the Homestead. His goal is to birth children without the use of any male DNA. What he does is he basically ends up cloning these women, but they become pregnant with their own selves in a sense. So Josephine is Girl One. She's the first girl to ever have been born without male DNA. And eventually there are 9 of them. But then this scientist dies in this fire, and nobody else knows how to recreate what he has done. So 20 years in the future, and this is going to be like the 1990s, we have these 9 girls who are like outcasts. They were so much in the media and the public spotlight that a lot of them have like split up and gone their own way and just tried to live normal lives. But when Josephine's mother goes missing, she ends up trying to find her. It's kind of like Wizard of Oz in a sense. So she goes around the country, meeting up with her other sisters and kind of gathering her friends as they go. And there's a lot of discussion about what happens when we no longer need men. So it's actually really interesting because there are some men that just cannot handle the fact that these women were born without male DNA. Toxic masculinity comes into play, and it just like hurts their ego that these women exist, even though like it's not affecting them whatsoever. What actually happened in the past? What happened to her mother? Why did she disappear? And then we start to discover that each of these sisters has something very special about them. And that is kind of where the supernatural aspect comes in. I did like it, but I thought it was way too long. There was a whole lot of just tons and tons of exposition, and I felt like it could have been 200 pages shorter. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it, but it wasn't, you know, amazing. I just felt like it was way too long. It could have gotten to the point a lot quicker. The next book I read this month is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This was a read for one of the book clubs that I am involved in, and based on the cover, it looks like a fantasy book, so I initially did think it was a fantasy book, but it's not. In fact, it's almost like a historical fiction. We're following these 3 women, and one of which is an apothecary in like 1700s England. Was it England or France? Somewhere in Europe. Sorry, Europeans. Her mother started her apothecary, but then her mother passed away, and she kind of takes it upon herself to start selling poisons to women in need of help who are in a situation. This is another kind of feminist take on this. So women that are in a situation where they've been hurt by men or something's gone wrong. So she has a couple of rules where she has to make sure that it's not going to be used to hurt another woman, and also that everything gets recorded in this ledger that she has that says who bought it, who it's for, and the date. And so we're following her, and then another girl who, I think her name's Eliza, she's 12 years old. She works for this woman who is buying poison from the apothecary to kill her husband. And Eliza gets kind of entangled in the apothecary's life. I think her name's Nella. They kind of grow this friendship. They each have their own perspective, and then we have another perspective. I think her name might be Christine. Oh, I can't quite remember. But she is in modern day. She's American. She's gone overseas on vacation. It's supposed to be her 10-year wedding anniversary, but she had just recently found out that her husband has been cheating on her and left and went without him. She finds this little bottle, this apothecary bottle, and she starts to try to delve into what she can find about this apothecary. We are following her and her story in present tense, and then the other two in past tense. Their stories become entangled. We find out everything that they go through and their legacy that's left behind and how that helps our protagonist in modern day. And I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 3.5 or 4 stars. There was a lot that had to happen in the past timeline in order to make the present timeline work out the way it did, which I liked, but I did have to suspend my disbelief a little bit. And while I appreciate that and it lent to a great story, it was kind of hard to believe that the extent which you would go and like just not thinking in your present day living, sorry, I can take the squirrel out now, that you would think about your legacy being left behind. Or for me at least, I found it a little hard to believe in the lengths that she went to do that. The next 3 I read were part of a reading vlog of reading my 5-star predictions. Come on, dude. Can you relax? This is a whole new thing I gotta figure out with the new dog. How to film. How to film. Huh, bud? I'll link that up above, whichever side that is. And if you want to get my in-depth thoughts on this, so I'll just go over them really quickly. First one is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I feel like I've been seeing some reviews that have come out for this and they've been mixed. Some people love it. Some people really didn't like it. I thought it was great. If you stick with it, I think it's well worth, like it pays off in the end. And I've heard people say that this isn't actually a thriller, but it is. It's just not your typical thriller. The first page of this says, Black History is Black Horror by Tananarive Due. Oh God, I'm sure I butchered that. And that's a quote from her book, Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror, which I need to read. Wow. I've heard it described as The Devil Wears Prada meets Get Out. I can see that for sure. It goes full circle. It's genre bending. The commentary is strong. The message is strong. And it's actually quite terrifying, but not in like a typical thrillery way, but definitely in a way that's more thoughtful. So I'll leave it at that. 5 stars, highly recommend it. The next one I read for that reading vlog was The Maidens by Michaelides. This one I think I gave 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed this as well. We're following Mariana, and she has a tragic past. Her niece goes to school at Cambridge, and her niece's friend was recently murdered. And so she calls Mariana and asks her to come just help her get through this time. And Mariana is a group therapist, and she goes to Cambridge, where she also had graduated from, to help her niece Zoe. She ends up getting involved in this case, and she ends up suspecting one of the professors, Dr. Fosca, who has cultivated this group of young women, female students, who kind of idolize him and follow him, and they're called the Maidens. And that's the general gist of this. Again, I felt like I had to suspend my disbelief a little bit with this, and that is the reason that I took it down 0.5 star. But other than that, it's incredibly atmospheric. It's very dark academia, very much just a fun read, and he has a great eye for this kind of thing. I love his writing style, and it was a lot of fun. The twist I didn't see coming at all. It took me there. I had fun. I enjoyed it. So I recommend this as well. Okay, and the last book I read for this reading vlog is the most controversial of these 3, and that is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Everything that happens in this book is in the title. It's a group of middle-aged women who form a book club reading horror and true crime and kind of fiction and nonfiction, all having to do with that. A man moves in down the street and they begin to suspect that he is a vampire. While I didn't hate the writing style, I felt like he was trying to do some things that were not successful. This book triggered me so much. There's so much gaslighting in this, and there's so much subversion of women, and there is a lot of discussion about race as well. So there's just so many trigger warnings in this. So look it up if you want to read it. Please look up the trigger warnings. There's death of children, rape, murder, like pretty much anything you could think of. But I could not handle the gaslighting. That's what triggered me. I can handle a lot of stuff, but the gaslighting just got me so much. I felt like the middle half of the book was poorly paced and nothing happened for a really long time except getting beat over the head with the gaslighting. I know what he was trying to do. I feel like it was in good faith. I feel like he was trying to put you in a position where you do get angry, and I did. Oh, I did. I got angry. I didn't feel like it was successful. I felt like he could have done a lot of things to make this more empowering and less like getting shat on. I gave this 2 stars. That's just my personal opinion. And I'm gonna move on now. I'm done talking about it. The next book I read this month was Foe by Iain Reid. I recently read I'm Thinking of Ending Things and I loved it, so I thought I'm going to read another one of his books. This one was interesting. I didn't love it as much as I'm Thinking of Ending Things, but I did think it was a fun ride. It was a quick read. We're following Junior and Henrietta. They live in an isolated farmhouse in a not so distant future. This is giving me Black Mirror vibes. So if you're into that kind of thing where it's like not so distant future, there's some kind of science that's been adapted that we don't have, that's been invented that we don't currently have right now, but other than that, it's kind of the same universe that we live in. One day this stranger comes and he says he's from the government and that Junior has been selected in this experimental interplanetary traveling colonization type of thing. We're following both of them as he goes out and explores, and in the meantime they leave Henrietta with someone who's very familiar to her so that she won't be lonely while he's gone. And that's all I'm gonna say about it, just because I don't want to give any spoilers, but pretty interesting. The twist, there was one twist at the end that I really liked that I didn't see coming. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 3 or 3.5. And then the next book I read is another one that I actually was not expecting and really ended up loving, and that is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. Definitely twisty, kept me engaged. It's another thriller. Obviously, I guess did I read all thrillers? Oh, except for The Lost Apothecary. Gosh, okay. I listened to this on audiobook, but I recommend having a physical copy or an ebook because there are a lot of different perspectives that go back and forth, and so it was a little bit tricky for me to keep up with. So we're following 2 different timelines and multiple POVs. And you have 11 years ago, a woman named Shelby went missing. And then shortly after that, a woman named Meredith and her daughter Dalila go missing as well in roughly the same area. 11 years in the future, Dalila, the little girl, just shows back up. She's almost feral. And we go back and forth to figure out, where has Dalila been? How is this connected to the other murder of Shelby, the very first murder? And we're getting perspectives from different people that are connected to all of these people, past and present. I would just leave it there. I would say it's really, really twisty. This was the first book I've read by Mary Kubica, and I just really liked it. I thought it was awesome, and I highly recommend it. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of twists. So if you want something fast-paced, super twisty, I'll give you this. What did I rate this? I give it 4 stars. The next one I read this month is a classic that I've been meaning to get to, and finally did, and that was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. We're following, and this is a closed circle mystery. I just love this copy too. It's got like the shinies, like the little shiny. Anyway, this super rich guy buys an island. He invites specific people to come stay on his island, and once they get there, the rich guy is nowhere to be found, and they're like, why are we here? Like, what's going on? They're in this like beautiful mansion, and they all get a free vacation, but they all have their own secrets that are going to be exposed, and they are accused of all being murderers. Someone is trying to expose them all and trying to bring justice for these things that they have done that are kind of loopholes that slip through the system. And so the police can't really go after them for what they've done, but this person, whoever it is, is going to. People start dying one by one, and we find out that whoever the killer is one of them. I thought it was fun. I'm so glad I read it. I really do love Agatha Christie's writing style, and I'm excited to read more from her. I think I gave it 3.75. Like, it wasn't the most amazing thing I've ever read, but considering how long ago it was written, it was very accessible. I had a lot of fun with it. Right, bud? And then the last book I read in June, I got in on the very last day, right when it came out, and that is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. Now, this one, most of you know what this is about, but basically we are following Charlie, and she is a film student. Her best friend has been killed by what they're calling what are they calling him? The campus killer, I think, or the co-ed killer, campus killer, something like that. She's just like done. She can't function. She feels like it was her fault because she walked away from her best friend when they were out partying, and that was when she was murdered. She can't deal with the guilt of it all, and so she decides she's going to quit school and go home, and she has to find a ride today because she's not hanging around a minute longer. So she puts a note up on a message board, and she gets a response from a guy named Josh Baxter, who is also heading home to help his sick father. Told over the course of a night, she starts to suspect that this Josh guy is in fact the killer. We go from there, everything unravels. So there are some people that are going to be disappointed in this because it was so incredibly hyped up, but overall I felt like it was just as good as any other Riley Sager book. I didn't feel like it blew me away or anything, but I had so much fun with it. I enjoyed all of the horror movie references. It was just one of those that are nostalgic because it's set in the 90s. I really loved our main protagonist, Charlie. I think she's great. She is just an imperfect person trying to do better. It's definitely twisty. I did figure out who it was before it was exposed. It was still a fun ride. I do recommend it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be reading this, so I'm excited to see what other people think of this. It was a good time. I'd give it a solid 4. And that's it. That's all I've read in June. Sorry I'm a little bit late on this, but you know, just got a lot of stuff going on over here. If you guys read these, please let me know what you think. I'd be interested to know. Don't forget, I always put my social media information and stuff down below. And if you do like this kind of content, I do appreciate it if you would subscribe or hit that like button. It really does help me out. That's gonna be it for now. So I will see you guys very soon, I'm sure, with my Summerween vlogs and everything else I've got going on right now. So until then, don't forget, life is short, so read Riley, and goodbye.